All right. All right. We were talking about financial statements. We talked about the Securities and Exchange Act of 33 and 34, creating the SEC, and all of a sudden now we have guidelines for audits of public companies, for that transparency, for the audits to basically say to the reader, this is a presenting fairly statement, or this statement doesn't present fairly, and now the reader has some reliance that there's some policing methodology in the financial statement world, and the investors are feeling good. They're feeling good that they can rely on these statements, except for one thing. And that one thing is a word that is best spelled in yellow, and that is known as greed. Yes, greed gets in the way of lots of things, and that's that one little thing that if there weren't greed in the world, what kind of place would it be? I wonder. So what's the greed that we're talking about? The greed that we're talking about in this situation is simply, here we go. The greed in this situation is simply that accountants are human too. You might not believe accountants are human. CPAs are human, and that is that CPAs like to make money, just like the rest of us. Why did I say it that way? I am a CPA. Who's the rest of us? Well, that would be some of you. Okay, CPAs like to make money. And when this whole process of the SEC was set up with audits, there was a flaw in the ointment. There is a flaw in the ointment. There is a gorilla in the room, as they sometimes say. And the gorilla in the room is the fact that CPAs get paid by the public company that is auditing the CPA. They pay the freight. So the public, can you imagine this? Let me give you a scenario. I bet you can't believe this scenario. Listen to this scenario. Here is the facts. The CPA comes in to do an audit of public company ABC. Now, public company ABC is committing a major fraud. Their financial statements do not present fairly the results of their operation or their financial position. In fact, they are hiding the fact that the managers and the directors of ABC company have been pulling the wool over the public's eyes for years, and this company is nothing but a bunch of smoke and mirrors. Holy cow. There's that holy cow again. So now the public's getting these financial statements from the CPAs, and the CPAs are about to tell the public that these are no good. These people are no good people, and the statements are no good, and you know what's going to happen when they say that? Think about it. What will happen when the CPAs tell the readers of the financial statements they're no good? Well, that stock is going to come. That was some sound effects for a market crash of public company ABC's stock on the exchange. Let's say again, New York Stock Exchange, for example. And therefore, the management of ABC company says to the CPAs, well, if you want to get your money, if you want to get paid, we'll pay you nice dollars, but you can't say no good. You have to say it's good. And the CPAs start looking the other way. Oops. And thus, now you have a situation where it's not just management fraud, but you got the CPAs who are playing along with the game, again, out of that, potentially we could say out of that word greed for the money involved. This scenario where the CPAs are getting paid by the owners of the public company, by the public company itself, is a reflection of what CPAs are supposed to have when they audit. They are supposed to be independent. Independent, meaning they are the judges and the jury of the company's financial statements, and they're supposed to have independence in their appearance to the world. Everybody looking at the way they conduct themselves would say, "Oh yeah, they're independent. They appear to be conducting themselves independently, and in their mind, the CPAs have to be independent in their mind. Now, not out of their mind, in their mind. Now, you might say, well, if they're getting paid by the client, how in the you-know-what can they ever be independent? And you have a point, a really good point. The profession has done a lot to try and make CPAs independent without disturbing this one little picture, which is where the company pays the CPA directly. We have done a lot. In fact, even the federal government did a lot. The federal government came in. Well, let's get to that story in a second. We're not quite there yet. So there's been a lot done to try to create a independence of appearance and to create independence of mind. But one might argue, as long as the CPA is getting paid by the client, perhaps, and this is a big with capital letters, perhaps it's impossible for the CPA to maintain that independence at all times, in all places, with all parties. Meaning that there are some CPAs who don't have that greed. There is some CPAs are good people. I'm not going to talk about me right now. Some CPAs are good, are ethical, and they don't let greed get to them. And let's say that some is most. Let's say. That would be nice if we could say that. In the history of our profession, meaning my profession, or your profession, in the history since 1933, 1934, when those famous SEC acts were passed, since that time, we'll do a quick, short history and bring us all the way up to 2002. And during the course of that history, here's how we'll do it. We'll put green bars like that. I'll do them where they apply, for where the CPA profession was acting very well and minding their stores good and being ethical and doing what they're supposed to do. We'll put yellow bars like that for the years that the CPAs were basically having what we call audit failures. An audit failure will be when the greed takes over and the CPA is maybe involved in the audit, fraud of the financial statement. Maybe they're not looking good enough. So there's two reasons why there could be an audit failure. One could be that greed factor, where the CPA is indeed part of the fraud, or the second reason could be that they just missed it. They missed the management fraud. So let's get a picture of what we're talking about here, just to make sure we're all on the page, because I'm about to show you something very interesting about the history of the CPA audit profession. CPAs do more than just audits, but this is the reason we're licensed. We can do everything else we want to do. We can't do certified audits without that CPA license. That's a good point. Let's make sure we got that. So the CPA itself, we talked about what it means. The CPA certificate is a license, if you will, that allows us to perform these audits. And without that, you can't say to the SEC or to the world at large, hey, I'm better than those CPAs. I've got independence because I know how to keep my mind clean and ethical, and I won't succumb to greed. I'll be good. I can really do a better job than those CPAs. Without the license, you can't audit financial statements. All right, so with the license, now we can commit fraud. Now we can audit financial statements. All right, so there's two reasons why we have what we call audit failures. One is that greed factor. That's where the CPA auditor gets involved with the management fraud. What's the management fraud? Their financial statements do not present fairly the results of operation. They're hiding something. They're just fraudulent. There's something going on that the public doesn't know about because the statements are cooked. The books are cooked. The numbers are either made up or they're manipulated. Something's wrong and the public doesn't know it. So one reason why the CPAs get involved in this failure is through greed. They are in on it. And sometimes it's just they miss it. Sometimes they just miss the fraud. They're supposed to catch, well, whether they're supposed to catch fraud or not is a certain issue that we won't get into in this course. But the audit failures we're talking about here, where there was no excuse for missing it. So these are not just employees taking some office supplies that they missed. This is like big time. It was enough that because they missed it, people bought the stock, and within a year or 2 years at the most, the company was bankrupt because the CPAs missed the big picture. We're talking about real big misses. Let's use the word we've been using throughout the course. They're real material misses of fraud. Real big material. And so those are the reasons why audit failures occur. So we were going to do this timeline. This ought to be interesting. We're going to do this timeline from 1934. How many years, how did it look? How did the profession perform? So we're going to draw a line, and we were going to say that the yellow represents an audit failure, yellow bars, and the blue, we'll say in this case, represents things are good. The CPAs are doing a good job. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Since 1934, oops, that's the wrong bar. Oh, we could do that. We could start it off. It was good the first year. It was good the first year. All right. So since 1934, and then we'll put down here 2002, this is what the history of the CPA profession looks like in a nutshell. Okay, so let's do the colors. So here you go. Here's yellow, which means audit failures are happening. Okay. And to be fair, I don't know, let's say this is around 1960. We're up there right now. So to be fair, oops, there's a little bit of a blip. Things are good. And, well, you get the idea. Audit failures happened and happened and happened and happened. And the long and short of the story is every single time they happened, the federal government said, "What's going on?" This is the feds. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? You guys are not doing your job. Every time this happens, the federal government has an inquiry. What's going on? Why are you having audit failures? Why are you missing things? Why are you getting into bed with your clients and being partners in the fraud? Again, those two reasons why financial statements go wrong, why there's audit failure. And every time the Fed said, we're going to take over your profession. We're going to police it. We're going to oversee it because you guys can't be relied upon. Well, things got so bad. In fact, I think the way to do it would be to compound the yellow up here. Things got so bad up till 2002, 2001, 2002, where the audit failures were so huge it was disturbing the marketplace. People couldn't rely on the financial statements anymore. And therefore, the federal government finally got their wish. And in 2002, the feds basically took the responsibility, the federal government took the responsibility of oversight of financial statements, but only for certified financial audited statements, only for public companies. And before we conclude this history, let's be fair and conclude it the right way, which is this is true, this picture is true, and the way it happened we'll learn in the next video under what law changed in 2002 to make this now a federal government responsibility. But let's call the shots the way they should be called, which is even since 2002, the clients still pay the CPAs. And has there been audit failures since then? Has there been audit failures since then, he asked. And the audience says, yes. Maybe not as much. Maybe. Things have gotten better. We'll find out about the 2002 law that helps make it better in the next video. But there have still been audit failures. And one might make the argument until this stops, greed will continue. we'll probably talk more about it.